Friday night once again. Time for another paranormal live chat here on the Paranormal Network. I'm Jason Hewlett, network manager, sometimes paranormal investigator, occasional skywatcher, which should come in handy for today's topic. I have author Wayne Klingman, author of the book UFO Cults, here to talk about his new book, what a UFO cult is, how they influence us. Just for listeners and viewers to know, Wayne is just recovering from a stroke. So sometimes his speech can be slurred a bit, so just listen carefully, but he's got a lot of great information. He's also a very good friend of mine. Wayne, welcome.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that check cleared.
Yeah, right? And I appreciate that check. So Wayne, this book came out, UFO Cults came out in, was it July?
July, absolutely. Yeah, July.
Last month. What, I guess first, like UFO cults, they're things that people don't talk a lot about. Actually, there's people are very focused on disclosure, but not this whole cult phenomenon that's been going on for decades now.
Absolutely, long time. Well, mostly because people laugh at them, right? We all laugh at the guy down the street that might think there's something in this guy or something in his backyard, or back when I was a child, something was always landing in my neighbor's field. Usually it's a battle of bulls, right?
Yeah.
But there are people who actually, believe it or not, believe that there's something UFO-ish out there that needs to be worshipped like a deity or some higher power. I think it's incredibly strange myself. But
well, it is. And I was glad when I heard that you were writing a book about it, because I think it's something that needs to get out there more. And my only real knowledge of them would be, was it the Raelians? The Raelians?
Yeah, Raelians, how you pronounce it, yeah. And you pronounce it far better than I ever will. So.
it's just so bizarre. So what inspired you to write this? Like, how did it come about?
Okay. I like UFOs. I like looking at them, like investigating them further. I really found it fascinating. And of course, we both know Dean,
yes.
The guy that runs Midwest Birds Fest. And he and I talk a lot about UFOs, and we started talking about UFOs and some of the religious beliefs that people actually have about them. I'm thinking, well, I'm between Matthew books, so let's look into this. And my good friend Doug Hass, who unfortunately was unable to make it with us tonight, said, let's write the book. So we did. It was really fun, a lot of fun working with him.
Well, Dean's great, actually, because I mean, Dean Bertram, of course, is co-host of Talking Weird, and he's actually going to come on next month on this show to have a conversation about a variety of topics. But he kind of keeps an eye on those fringe bits.
Yes.
Which I think he would be the guy to kind of bring that up. So what kind of what kind of research do you have to do into this topic?
Well, thankfully, there's a lot of Wikipedia should never be used as a primary source.
No,
but it can at least let you understand some of the concepts of it. It lets you, and sometimes if what's at the bottom, the footnotes are usable, it's always going away to go further and deeper. And thankfully, there's a lot of good newspaper articles about the different cults. It's really Heaven's Gate, which is the ones I think most people are familiar with. The poor people who really, really, truly believe that something was coming to get them. And when it didn't, they just said that they needed to kill themselves. That's just insane. I just don't get that. That's the power of faith.
And this is so, and hello to everyone who's tuning in so far, Jackie and Daryl and Charles. In a way, this is, to me, is fascinating. So people are viewing the possibility of extraterrestrials or even just UFOs themselves as almost like a religion. And there are people who are taking advantage of this to kind of create these cults, right? What did you learn? Like, how does this, like, what's a case study that you did? Like you mentioned Heaven's Gate, but what's another one that you guys sort of focus on in the book?
I think Heaven's Gate is by far the easiest one to look at because it does have a start. We can trace what they did. We can trace the members of them. We can trace the beginning of the cult itself, the leadership, what they all went through. We don't know exactly what motivated them, but we think we know why they killed themselves. But what would make people do that? I mean, if you told me, Jason, I got to kill you, I die tonight because something didn't happen, I'd say, have a nice day and call the police to get you out, right? But these people said, okay, we got to do this. I mean, men would actually go and have themselves castrated.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part of it. Like,
yeah.
You couldn't pay me all the money in the world to do something like that.
No, but yet, interesting thing about cults is many of the cults use some type of sexual component. You know, we have back where I live up in northern Wisconsin, we had sex bombers, love bombing. They cult that love bombing. By that means attractive young women would go meet attractive young men, older men, whatever, have sex with them, try to recruit them to the cult, get money, get resources from them, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, sex is a very powerful motivator. But to me, you have to put the thing to say you got to cut off. You can't do it anymore. It's the balls have to go. Is this beyond me?
Well, and I guess it comes down to cults in general, because cults, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a UFO cult or a religious cult or any kind of cult. There's something about the leaders of these groups that have this all, like say, Helter Skelter,
Yeah.
Charles Manson. There's something about the people that run these things that can take their belief and they don't even enforce it on people. They just sort of manipulate, brainwash, like target certain people that are easy to sway. Is that kind of what's going on here with these UFO cults?
No, in my opinion, most members of UFO cults are above average of intelligence. You can't take, using my neighbor as an example, right? The one that used to drink too much and see things in the backyard. She would never be able to handle the idea of UFO cult because she can't just have that concept of something from another planet actually coming to Earth, something from another planet being some type of higher power, where she would really go to the Charles Manson sort of thing. But that, God, I hate to use these words, but I have no other words I can use. You don't find the sharpest tools in the shed going after Charles Manson. You find some really intelligent people that get involved with UFO cults. There's a big difference. Interesting thing about Charles Manson, if I can say so, he was also probably heavily involved with MK Ultra.
Yes, that's right. That was a big part of it. And of course, that ties into the whole theory. If my memory serves me correctly, because there's a lot rattling around in this head, the whole idea of being able to, that the UFOs and extraterrestrials are actually kind of demons coming from a different dimension. Right? That's kind of the gist of it, right?
With Charles Manson?
Well, he wasn't, but that Ultra group, I mean, that tied into like,
No, MK Ultra was the CIA program that tried to practice mind control.
Right. Okay.
They got a hold of Charles Manson. They got a hold of a guy named Whitey Bulger, who was involved with the mafia, and they got a hold of the Ultra Bomber. They tortured MK Ultra programs, tortured the Ultra Bomber, tortured Whitey Bulger. People believe that that's what drove them both insane to the point where they started killing people. They don't quite know what they did with Charles Manson, other than the fact that he was interacting with people involved in MK Ultra. He was able to get by with some really incredible criminal deeds, that then it put him in jail for a long period of time that they should have perhaps. It was insane. But it is what it is. MK Ultra is another fascinating situation.
Well, and there's so many different ones out there that people are just kind of starting, especially the conspiracy theorists like to kind of get into, you know what I mean? Like, and I think it's fascinating stuff myself. As Gizzy here says, it's cool, which it is with a K. I agree.
Yeah.
So if these cults are drawing intelligent people, because these are people who want to believe in UFOs, right?
Absolutely.
Do you think it's more that lure that gets them to come together, Wayne, and then not conspire, but just kind of cook up these ideas? Like how
I think that once the leadership gets established and start recruiting members, and they attract the like minds to that group think starts to develop, and you don't leave groupthink easily. Also, because they're more intelligent people, it's easy to keep a group of intelligent people together when the people surrounding them might be not the sharpest tools in the shed.
Yeah.
Why not hang out with people like us, who like to hang out with people that believe the same things that we do, we can have intelligent conversations with, versus hanging out with people in the bar that want to talk about Green Bay Packers. There's not much excitement there.
True. True. So with your research, how many of these cults are out there? Like how many of these UFO cults?
I think we looked at, I know my book is front of me, I would tell you. I think we looked at 4, but there's way more than 4. There's way more than 4. I mean, the number is probably, in my opinion, there's probably a couple 100,000 people that believe in some sort of UFO mythology that would call as a cult. But most of them come and go. Just like as I would talk to Dean about, just like Wicca, groups come, they form, they disappear after a while. Leadership dies. Leadership gets exposed as frauds. Leadership no longer has the pizzazz, the charisma that it used to have, so people drift away. The cult dies.
So a lot of these then are almost like these, hello, John, thanks for tuning in, are like these almost like transient groups more than anything else, right?
Some of them are. The ones that we looked at tend to stay around. Some of them, I think all of them have some sort of existence left, and they may not be as big as they were in their heyday, but they still have membership levels. They still have headquarters that people like you and I can visit should we choose to, other than Heaven's Gate, who are dead. But I even think they have something still going. I think there's a couple of surviving members still out there doing whatever they do. I mean, it's not that hard to find one. You could start one.
I do. I don't know if I would want to. Because for me, I love all aspects of the paranormal, and I'm definitely, there's something going on with unidentified flying objects, right? Like obviously, I mean, when Congress is looking at it and setting up groups to investigate, people are seeing them all over the world. But I'm still not 100% convinced that what we're seeing isn't just government spy planes,
right?
Nations spying on each other. I mean, I like to think that there would be beings from another planet or a different dimension or from a different timeline that are crossing over, but I don't know if I can quite just grasp that. So for me to even consider taking a belief like that and running with it and creating this group of like-minded people, I find just very hard to understand, but I know it's happened.
And I mean, it's happened historically. I mean, I don't want to offend anyone. Let me just say there's elements of religions, practical religions today, Christians religions today, there's elements of UFO cults. They believe in something from above that showed up and gave them something. I mean, Christ, in Burlington, Wisconsin, not far from where I live, people saw the famous metal plate in the ground. They picked it up. Obviously, we can't read it. It must be from God. Let's start a religion. They would go from Burlington, go like Michigan, and become pirates.
Well, and there are people who put a strong argument forward that aliens were here during the Egyptian times, that they were here during the time of Christ, that what we talk about in the Bible as angels were beings from another planet.
Absolutely.
They came down and, Aboriginal cultures have a strong tie to what they call the star people, right? Like, and say that we're ancestors of them. So it's not hard to grasp, but none of these cults take those ideas. They come up with something that to me almost just feels kooky. You know what I mean?
That's because the media presents them as crazies, right? Some guy gets messages from Venus. He believes his messages are real. And it's actually in communication with Venus. So he starts a YouTube channel. He gets 400 or 500 people, grow to 1,000 people. They decide to meet someplace in California in the desert and sit around and smoke weed, sit around and eat mushrooms, do some meth. Let's start a religion. Obviously, God speaks to us. Well, actually, this guy's from Venus, or so our guy claims. But again, they're not hurting people, other than Heaven's Gate, but they were hurting themselves. I've yet to hear of a UFO cult making people stay against their will. If anything, they kick people who don't quite believe enough. Not like they won't let you see your parents, won't talk to your kids, or anything like that. It's like, okay, you want to believe anymore? There's the door. Use it. So that's all good. I mean, because we think they're cookie, we make fun of them. It's hard for us to get that good understanding that we can get of them by talking to them. I think something that Dean does very good when he talked to me is he explained his experience when he lived with a cult group. I can't remember which one offhand, for let's say a couple of weeks. It's very interesting conversation. I would suggest that you ask him about that question. We have like an hour.
Wasn't he going to take that in and write an article on it? I think, wasn't it, for 40 Times or something like that?
I think so. I think I might be part of his new book too. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's insane. There's the number of people. Let me back up. If you want to believe what you want to believe, as long as you don't hurt anybody else, hurt an animal, I don't care. You can do what you want to, right? If you believe in UFOs helps you become a better person, go for it. Absolutely. But
as with any of this, with ghosts, Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, if it's sort of for the greater good and like you say, helps you be a better person, that's fine. I guess it's when it becomes to the point where people are willing to take their lives.
Yes.
Because something hasn't come forward that as with any cult or religion, that there is a problem.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. 100%, sir. 100%. And the thing is to make sure that we infect these. I don't know how it is that we can reach these groups and say, hey, you can believe what you want to believe. But when they talk about committing suicide or doing some other horrific things, or perhaps hurting children, you might want to call somebody and get some help. But I think it's important that those resources exist.
No, I agree. And I think we've got, what's a comment here from John? I've noticed that there are less sightings being published or documented, making it look like there are less sightings happening these days. In terms of UFOs, I don't know. Like I'm hearing every day something new on the web about a sighting here or a sighting there.
Absolutely, especially with around U.S. Navy ships.
Yes, with the Tic Tacs, etc. And I know I had Caroline Corey on 2 weeks ago, and she's the filmmaker behind A Terror in the Sky, and they picked up a lot of similar activities in that area where the Nimitz saw stuff back in 2014, but continuing today. But I think there's so many that they're kind of being almost overshadowed by each other, and it seems like maybe there's not as much. So these cults aren't as prevalent right now, but do you think social media is making it easier for them to form? Do you think, Wayne, like YouTube and Facebook, etc.?
I would say more like Facebook and YouTube than say Twitter. I've yet to discover any new cults on Twitter. I don't do Facebook. But I mean, God, I know that you and your family and the people next door have formed a UFO cult, and I've kidnapped a group of people who can sacrifice the Latinx master in your basement.
I guess you'd hear about that.
You don't know what's going on, and that's why we need to pay attention. I mean, also what I wrote in the book was I really encourage people, if they want to investigate UFOs, by all means do so. And what we're doing in my second book is we're looking at stuff happens to many of the people who go into researching UFOs, excuse me, my voice. The number of times they get harassed by men in black, sometimes they get horrible things happen to them. Cars explode, telephones get cut off. Some of them get driven insane. Why does this go on? Why does it go on so much with UFO researchers versus Bigfoot researchers?
Well, I was just going to say, I've been a paranormal investigator for 20 years, Peter for 30, who's my colleague, and we've not been threatened by anybody living. You know what I mean? But it is UFO researchers that do find that sort of behavior happening. Like, well, John Keel's a prime example.
Absolutely. Frank Keel's a great example. Jack Fillet writes a huge, nice book, Something's Deceptions, right? He documents all kinds of cases of weird things happening to people. People would take the expense to do the things that Jack Fillet documents. I mean, some of those things that they did to people cost a lot of money, cost a lot of resources. Why would they do that for? I don't get it.
And that begs the question: when you were doing your research and writing your book, does the government, etc., pay as much attention to these cults?
No, I don't think so. I think they put the cults in the loony bin category.
Which I find interesting. How, you know what I mean? Like, these are people that are treating it like a religion. You'd think you'd want to pay attention to them because maybe they're onto something.
I think the government pays more attention to the guy that builds the radio telescope in his backyard, to the guy that coordinates with other people, do city-type researchers using computers. Those are the people the government pays really close attention to. Those idiots who, was it last year, 2 years ago, that we're going to go to Area 51 and storm it?
Yeah, that was back in 2019, the storm Area 51.
That got a lot of government attention. That would kind of went well for them.
Well, because if they had actually stormed it, a lot of people probably would have gotten shot.
They don't play. So Area 51 does not play.
No, they don't. What kind of influence do these groups have, Wayne? Do they have much influence at all on the general
not the general public, other than being the laughing stock? And I apologize to use that word, but like when we started the conversation, it was a giggle thing once, because people think they're getting communication from Venus. They're getting communication here. They're getting communication there. I can tell you to do these things because they're going to come and save us. That's the big thing is many times people want to believe that some power greater than us is going to come and save us because obviously we can't save ourselves.
Well, because it takes a lot of work to improve yourself.
Right.
We don't like to put a lot of effort into things as a species generally, right?
Right, or for society. I mean, how hard is it? It's easier for me to think, okay, if I just wait and do the right thing, the people in Venus will come and save me, than just read a net, watch TV, and go to my local city meeting and say what I want to say, or to go to vote, heaven forbid. It's easy to pass that responsibility along to someone else.
Do you think that's kind of what holds a lot of these groups together? Because I know back in the 60s and the 70s, when it came to extraterrestrials, etc., that was the belief. And that was all the messages that
Yeah,
people would relay, is that they've come down and you've got to disarm your nuclear weapons. And I'm here bringing a message of peace, that mankind is going to get better. Do you think that's kind of what spurred a lot of this, Wayne? Is just the
absolutely,
desire for almost like divine intervention, but instead of being
absolutely.
divine, it's alien?
Right. Somebody else other than us will take care of us. We don't have to take care of ourselves. The Venetians will. The Martians will. Somebody else will.
And even there's even that belief. Is it a guy from Mars or Venus who works in the White House? Do you remember?
No, I don't. I can remember more than one comet was going to do something, but I can't remember. Oh, the lizard men. Lizard men are big.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah, yeah. Big believe that they're either controlling things or want to control things, or they're fighting with different people. Lizard thing is quite the rabbit hole to go around into.
Well, and that's true, because that's almost like a step with these cults, is that there's a belief that there's like these different alien races at war with each other all the time, like in our atmosphere and on our planet. And it must be a really quiet war. Plane of exist. Like, that's why, again, we're kind of making fun of this, but there are people who legitimately believe this is going on.
I know a young woman who absolutely believes that lizard men run the world. Absolutely. I mean, she runs a successful clothing store in Florida. She makes more money than God, but she absolutely believes she's anything she does, she's being managed by lizard men, and they actually control the world. And she's scared of her life that one day the lizard men want to kill her, or heaven forbid, breed her.
John has a good question here. How much money do these cults make from making people believe? Is this something that people do make money off of, Wayne?
No.
Like, in terms of no?
Some people have established bases and do a little bit of payment of staff. But most of these cults have very little money. I think those are people groups make more money than the UFO cults do.
Which I find, sorry. Yeah. I just have a hard time with that. I don't.
I mean, to me, I don't get it myself. To me, I'm a kind of guy, if I'm going to believe in an organization, especially religious one, I'm going to do tithe, right? But some of these groups don't even do that. It's like, you want to buy a book, you want to come take the tour, yeah, we'll charge you for it, but they don't do the tithing thing. They don't do the outside, the airport's panhandling. It's like, buy the book, come take the tour. If you hear the speaker, then you should pay the door fee. But they don't go out solicit money. Most of them. Yeah. I should know how Heaven's Gate made their money, but I can't think of it. But they had a significant amount of money because they sent their men to Mexico to be castrated. That's not cheap.
Well, no, and I think in that case, I mean, that is like the extreme case of UFO cults. That's the border where it's not even a UFO cult; it's just a cult.
Yeah.
And we've seen cults do incredible, terrible things to their members, or convince people. People would to like commit suicide, to blow up buildings. It almost, these cults like that borderline on religion in a way. They have almost the same sway.
Yeah.
These leaders, as some of like the televangelists, etc. That would say, God's going to take me back to heaven unless I raise $1 million and give him $1 million, and how they gets his money in like 24 hours. Like, these things happen. There are people that sway over other people, which that to me is frightening.
Very frightening. I mean, who is it say who's the guy that goes on TV and says, I get $1 million, I'm going to die? I'm going to say, write that will. That's, to me, if he's cut me, I'm not going to give him a penny, right?
Yeah.
Somebody says, I'm looking for money because I can go to Chad and start an orphanage, or go to Nigeria and dig a well. That's something else. Not something actual that I can see him doing and managing the progress. The idea of somebody saying, using Venus for a moment. Somebody says that, okay, to join my cult, to join my group, it's going to be $500 a month. And the Venetians are going to come and pick us up next week, Tuesday, in a rocket ship. It's going to be a nice trip.
Yeah, and we give them the money to help pay for the fuel costs, and then that's how it's going to work, right?
Yeah. I mean, we need to, I think we as individuals need to be careful what we decide to do with what we believe. We have to, as they say, check the facts.
Well, I think so. I think it's great that there's a book like this out there, because it is something that goes on, and I think it goes on very quietly, and it could only be a matter of time before, say, another Heaven's Gate happens.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's a UFO cult. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios that exist to make a Heaven's Gate sort of thing happen. I mean, many people feel under an incredible amount of pressure, and they're looking for the escape. Maybe it's UFOs one day, maybe it's lizard men. If they own the neighbors have got to be a lizard man for whatever reason, we have to kill them now. I mean, I can see that happening. I can really see that one happening.
Oh yeah, and I think it happens. You hear stories like the son of Sam saying it was his dog that told him to kill somebody, right? It doesn't take much for someone with a schizophrenic personality or dissociative personality to believe something's going on and commit an act. And all it takes is one person who may harmlessly think that the Venusians are coming to set somebody like that off, because these people do cling to things for something to hold on to. So I think that's if there's a risk. But like you say, that could be anything. That could be Satanists. That could be Roman Catholics. It could be almost anything, any religion or organized group that could set someone like that off.
Absolutely. It doesn't take much, as we all know. It could be a book of library they pick up.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, how many people have picked up a Catch in the Rye after supposedly reading that? It was the book that set off guy. I can't think of the guy who was set off as a mass murderer.
Oh, I can't either. I know, but there's a person who shot Reagan was because of Jodie Foster.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take much for someone who's delusional to make that leap.
No, we can't protect society from them because they're all around us. It's hard to determine what makes you and I different than the guy that thinks the Venetians are going to come tomorrow afternoon. You tell me, right?
You and I believe a lot of weird stuff. You and I believe a lot of weird stuff.
Well, you know, I write a lot of weird books. I mean, I write books on the mafia. I write books on gambling. I have fiction books on cartel members. I mean, God knows if the CIA looks at me or the FBI looks at me. My God, I even went to my local city council meeting. I've spoken up.
There you go.
You have
people with black helicopters outside your house right now looking for
Absolutely. Right? You know, well, lizard men. I think they're lizard men. Myself, I think the CIA's had lizard men are going to get me.
That's a bold statement to put out on Facebook.
Well, it makes as much sense as anything else, right?
Well, I know. And I guess that just shows how this can operate, right?
Right, absolutely. But if I can plug my books for a second, I appreciate the opportunity to do so. You can find all my books on Amazon. Let's Google Wayne. Let's go to Amazon and search bar. Type in Wayne Klingman, right? With a C. C-L-A.
Screen.
Yeah, right. So it's on the screen, right? And all my books will be there.
UFO Cults is the newest. You have another one that you're working on as well.
I have the newest one out to this on UFOs is out in July. The second book of the UFOs will be out probably in October or November. I have another Mafia book coming out in September. In fact, I have a Mafia conference coming up that I'm putting on in Vegas in October. Wow. Yeah.
You're busier than I am, and that's hard, Wayne.
No, I have all kinds of time. I got all kinds of time. And thankfully, the people I know like sports and stuff I do. But if I may also, one thing about my books, right? The money I get from selling my books, my share goes to support the stray cats that we take care of here.
That's right.
So if you buy a book, do I buy soda with it? Yeah. Do I take a lot out to lunch once in a while? Yeah. But the vast majority of the money goes to support the stray cats around here. So you help the cats out, and I owe you a great deal of thanks for any book pushes that you might make.
Excellent. Well, Wayne, thanks for coming on and talking UFO cults with me. I'll have you back on in the fall, and we can talk about your next UFO book as well. But it's been a pleasure talking to you as always.
Thank you very much, sir. And say hi to Lizard Man on your trip.
I will do that. That's right. I'm going on a trip, folks. So the next 2 Fridays, there will be no show. I'm back in the middle of September on the 16th with another show, and that'll be with Dr. Dean Bertram.
He thinks he'll be back in another show in another couple of weeks. Will it be him, or will it be Lizard Man with his skin on?
You may never find out. Till then, folks, have a good night.